channel. In this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the conflict on the territory of Ukraine, and we see that the conflict in Ukraine is changing. And not just the conflict, we see that the rules of this conflict are being changed as well, and it seems that we are returning to the beginning, so to the situation that we saw in 2022. First, let's talk about the statements that were made by the president of Russia yesterday. By the way, today the pro-Russian sources promised that Putin is going to make a very interesting speech. He will talk a lot, probably he will talk a lot about Ukraine and about other different things. So we will see this video, but now let's discuss the statements that he made yesterday. Russian troops are advancing along the entire line of Constanța. There is no place where the Russian armed forces have not yet advanced. Furthermore, forced Ukrainian mobilization yields 16,000 fighters per month, while the return of the wounded is around 14,000. Each month, the Ukrainian armed forces are losing 10,000 fighters. Ukraine has around 20,000 deserts per month. Russia is acquiring new strike systems, including the Oreshnik. Russia has its own production, scientific and personal base to support its army, and it is growing stronger every month. Russia, like Ukraine, has patriotism and the will of the people. These are the main conditions for achieving all the goals of the joint military operation, of the special military operation. Russia is ready to negotiate with Ukraine peacefully using the base discussed with Trump in Anchorage. Russia is willing to compromise. The Ukrainian side must agree, and the conflict will end quickly. So these are the statements that were made by the president of Russia. Another important statement: there is no need to suspend hostilities in order to begin negotiations. And the most important one is that if we reach the point of signing peace documents, we will find those who should sign them. There would just have to be a will. So according to these statements, we see that the Russians are not going to stop the special military operation. They will continue. This is the first thing. And the second thing, that the Russians don't care who will sign the capitulation or a peace agreement from the Ukrainian side. This could be the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, or any other person. So, and most likely, according to all these statements, we see that the conflict will continue. And during the same period of time when we were receiving all these statements made by the president of Russia, the president of Ukraine also made his own statement, but not a statement. He published an open letter. Zelensky published an open letter to Putin proposing a face-to-face meeting to discuss ending the war. In the letter, he stated that Ukraine is prepared for all complete ceasefire during negotiations, as well as an all-for-all prisoner exchange. He believes that the negotiations should involve the United States and European countries as potential guarantors for future agreements. Zelensky also stated that Ukraine will continue to resist if the war is not stopped, and called on the Russian leadership to make a decision to end it. He mentioned Switzerland, Turkey, and Arab countries as possible venues for the meeting. And also, according to this letter that was made by the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, we see that Zelensky and Ukraine are not ready to make any concessions. And summarizing everything, we understand that most likely the special military operation, the conflict on the territory of Ukraine, will continue and will last the entire 2026 and probably the 2027 and maybe even 2028. Now let's return back to Ukraine. Let's discuss the most important updates that took place during the previous night. And according to information we have, the Russians attacked the territory of Ukraine using hundreds of drones. And this morning, the Minister of Defense of Ukraine published this number that the Russians used 218 drones to attack the territory of Ukraine. And we have lots of very interesting updates on this matter. After a very short operational pause, the Russians resumed their attacks through the northwestern parts of Ukraine. According to information we have, the Russians were attacking the settlement of Rakitna, which is located in the northwestern parts of Ukraine. Here we can see how the Russians attacked another object using Iran drone. And I would like to remind you that now the Russians intensify their activities through the northwestern parts of Ukraine with the purpose to destroy and to hit the Ukraine's logistics in this area and to create a similar situation that we can see right now through the southern regions. Another important area is the northern parts of Ukraine. During the previous 24 hours, explosions were recorded through the settlement by the name of Snovsk. According to information we have, the Russians attacked a railway station, and as a result of attack, probably several trains were damaged or even destroyed. The Russians attacking this area, trains, railway stations, bus stations, and so on, with the purpose to reduce the Ukraine's logistic capabilities in this area, just with one purpose: not to allow the Ukrainians to use this area to attack deep inside of the territory of Russia. As for the deep inside attacks, during the previous nights, we received the video from the city of St. Petersburg. I would like to remind you that during the massive attack that was carried out by the Ukrainians several days ago, the Ukrainians hit this Navy ship, and as you can see, from this angle, from this perspective, we see that this Russian military ship was probably significantly damaged. According to information we have, the Russians managed to stabilize the situation. The firefighters were managed to extinguish the fire in this area, but as of now it's very difficult to understand the level of damage that the Ukrainians managed to deal to this ship. Now let's move further and let's return back to Ukraine and let's continue with massive attacks. According to information we have, the Russians during the previous night were attacking the city of Odessa and the Odessa region. Lots of explosions and lots of drones of the armed forces of the Russian Federation were recorded through the city of Chernomorsk. The Russians were attacking this territory significantly. The sources stated about dozens of drones that the Russians used for these purposes. Probably the Ukrainians received another cargo with munition or with weapons with the purpose to use these weapons later to attack in the direction of the southern regions of Russia. As for this territory, during the previous night, we also received lots of updates. According to information we have, pro-Ukrainian sources published this video, and according to this video, during the previous night, the Ukrainians carried out another attack using drones with the purpose to destroy and to damage the Russian vessels and ships. And according to information we have, several commercial vessels were damaged by the Ukrainians. And in this video, we can see how exactly this process were taking place. Here we have several vessels that were attacked by the Ukrainians, and as a result of these attacks, these vessels were damaged. This morning, pro-Russian sources stated that there are casualties among civilians. One of these vessels belonged to Azerbaijan company, and the sources are saying that there are vessels among the crew of Azerbaijani crew of this ship.
Denne norske nervepude fjerner kroniske smerter ved at fjerne trykket på kritiske nerver. Hvorfor skifter folk med ryg og
The Russians, from their side, continue attacking the territory between the cities of Zaporozhye, Dnipro, and Pavlograd. In this video, we can see how Russians were using drones to attack an object on the territory of the city, and we can see a black smoke that broke out right after the Russians attacked this territory. I would like to remind you that the Russians these days attack significantly the Dnipro region. For example, yesterday, if you remember, we received lots of videos from this territory. We have here two logistic hubs that were attacked by Russians with drones, and as a result of those attacks, these logistic hubs were damaged significantly, but it was very difficult to understand the level of damage that the Russians managed to deal. But this morning, pro-Ukrainian sources published a video where we can see the consequences, the real consequences of this attack. In this video, we can see this warehouse, and as you can see, the warehouse, the video that was made from inside of the building, and as you can see, this warehouse was significantly damaged by the Russian drone. The Russians most likely will continue this practice. They will continue bombing and attacking different warehouses, ammo depots through the entire territory of Ukraine with the purpose to destroy Ukraine's logistics. Furthermore, the Ukrainians continue attacking in the direction of the cities of Donetsk, Gorlovka, and so on. During the previous 24 hours, more videos were published on this matter. In this video, we can see how the Ukrainians attacked vehicles of the armed forces of the Russian Federation that were involved in some repairing process. The Russians were repairing roads and so on. And in this video, we can see how the Ukrainians destroyed another piece of engineering equipment. So we have lots of videos from these territories as well. For example, in this video, we can see a warehouse that was destroyed on the territory of the settlement of Vuglegorsk. Some object of energy infrastructure probably even was damaged. So, as we can see, both the Russians and the Ukrainians intensify the number of drones they use to attack each other. And of course, this situation cannot last forever. Obviously, sooner or later, something will happen. Now let's move further and let's continue with the Black Sea. Another important update is coming from the state of Romania, from the Constanța port. Today, according to information we have, a Navy drone was destroyed, or we have something like an explosion. According to different sources, an explosion occurred approximately at 10 a.m. in the area of the Romanian port of Constanța. And we received videos from this area from different angles, and later we received the report that, according to information we have, the device involved was a sea drone similar to those used by Ukraine. So very difficult to say what exactly the drone that's similar to those that used Ukraine were doing here, but the sources are saying that this drone was spotted in the area of some oil infrastructure facilities. So it seemed one can say that somebody was planning to use this drone that looks like the Ukrainian drones to attack an object of energy infrastructure on the territory of Romania. So, summarizing everything, we see that either somebody was trying to hit an object of energy infrastructure in the area of the port of Constanța in the territory of the state of Romania, or somebody wanted to make us to think that somebody was using a drone similar to the drones that Ukrainians use, with the purpose to attack an object of energy infrastructure. So we will see what is going to happen next, but obviously this is a very interesting signal.
Bilka to go. Leveret til døren eller klar til afhentning.
Af og til har du brug for en lønsikring. Hos af og til har vi Danmarks billigste A-kasse og lønsikringspark.
Now let's discuss the situation in Ukraine, several political and very important updates worth attention. As I told you at the beginning of this video, we are returning back to 2022 because today we received the report that on Thursday the US House of Representatives passed a bill allocating nearly $2 billion in aid to Ukraine and imposing new sanctions against Russia. The bill was approved by a vote of 226 to 195 and sent to Senate for consideration despite complete opposition from the Republican Party leadership. So this is the situation, and as we can see, according to these reports, the United States of America is going to start sending or giving more money for Ukraine with the purpose to allow the Ukrainians to fight with the Russians. Another important thing is that Ukraine is asking the European Union not to provide protection to men aged 23-60. This is what the Ukrainians are asking us to do so. So according to this report, the Ukrainians are trying to make the situation when people of 23-60 age, when they leave the territory of Ukraine, they would be returned forcibly back to the territory of Ukraine, and of course the Ukraine will mobilize them with the purpose to send them to the line of combat contact. Now let's discuss the situation along the line of combat contact. We have lots of very interesting changes, and first let's talk about the northern parts of the Sumy region. According to information we have, during the previous 12 hours, the Russians have improved their position significantly through the northern parts of the Sumy region, and the Russians, according to these changes, continue advancing further in the direction of the settlement by the name of Ulanova. And these are the changes on the ground between the dates. The Russians continue advancing, and the Russians are just several meters before enter the settlement and to begin clashes for this territory. Another important area is the Sumy direction. These days, we received lots of very interesting changes and very interesting reports published by pro-Russian sources. This morning, the group of forces north of the armed forces of the Russian Federation reported that the clashes currently are taking place on the territory of three settlements: the settlement of Pisarevka, the settlement of Ivolzhanska, and the settlement of Novosich. Based on this report published by the group of forces north, we have adjusted the map. So this is the approximate situation along the line of combat contact as of the beginning of the 5th of June of 2026. The Russians managed to break through Ukraine's defense in this area, and most likely in coming days we'll start receiving updates about the situation in this area. The Russians most likely will be able to take these three villages under complete control, and if it happens, the Russians will be able to begin sending their troops in the direction of the big Sumy forest, and the Russians will continue advancing further in the southern direction until they get the river by the name of Psyol. So this is the most important river of the Sumy direction. The Russians first of all would try to establish complete control over the territories to the north of the river, and then the Russians will continue offensive operation further in the direction of the city of Sumy itself. If Russians are able to take this forest under complete control, the Russians will be able to concentrate significant number of forces without any problems from the Ukrainian side. In the southeastern direction, the Russians began bombing and attacking the settlement of Krasnopolye with aviation, which means that the Russians began preparation before a ground offensive operation in this direction. In this video, we can see how the Russians destroyed a temporary deployment point of FPV drone operators of the armed forces of Ukraine with aviation with FAB bombs. As for the Kharkiv direction, these days we continue receiving more and more updates from the settlements of Zolochiv and Kazachий Lopань. The group of forces north stated that they continue offensive operation in this area as well. In coming days, we might start receiving first changes on the ground in this area. Another important thing is that today the group of forces north also reported that as a result of clashes, the Russians entered the settlement of Losivka, and currently the clashes are taking place for this village as well. This is a very dangerous situation for the armed forces of Ukraine, who is currently located in the area of Bielый Kolodец, because if Ukrainians lose control over the settlements of Losivka and Sosnovo Bar, the Russians will continue offensive operation further in the eastern direction with the purpose to outflank the settlement of Bielый Kolodец, which will force the Ukrainians to fall back further in the southern direction, and the entire defense line of the northeastern part of the Kharkiv region may collapse automatically. As for the Kupiansk direction, the Russians also improved their positions to the north of the city of Kupiansk and to the west of the settlement of Dvorichna. And these are the changes on the ground between the dates. The Russians, as we can see, continue offensive operation in the direction of the northeastern part of Kharkiv region, at least from 4 directions: from the area of Dvorichna, from the border, from the most northeastern part of Kharkiv region, and of course from the area of the city of Volchansk. The Russians, it seems, are tasked to establish complete control over the territories between the Pechenegi water reservoir and the city of Kupiansk itself, and this offensive operation is going to be one of the most important offensive operations for Russians for the military campaign of 2026.
Det er en af livets store gaver at udforske dele af verden, der er forskellige fra vores egen.
As for the Konstantinovka direction, during the previous 12 hours, we received additional changes on the ground as well. In this video, we can see how the Russians were bombing and attacking positions of the armed forces of Ukraine, and now we see that the Russians began bombing the Ukrainians mainly through the northern parts of the city, which means that most likely the central part and the southwestern parts of the settlement is already under complete Russian control. Furthermore, we have lots of videos published by pro-Russian sources. Here we can see how Russian drones were flying over the northern parts of the city of Konstantinovka, and here we can see hundreds of vehicles of the armed forces that were destroyed. And in this video, we can see a Russian drone that was flying over this territory, probably seeking for soldiers or equipment of the armed forces that wasn't undamaged. So lots of, as you can see, vehicles were destroyed, and this is another living road that Ukrainians used to use to support their forces during the main battle for the southern parts of the city of Konstantinovka. Now it seems that the Ukrainians use this road less and less, because now they're not sending troops anymore in the southern direction. And the most important thing is the video, more precisely the report that was published by pro-Ukrainian sources, and here we can see that these days pro-Ukrainian sources began intensifying the changes of the map, which means that most likely the battle for the city of Konstantinovka is coming to a logical end, and most likely the Russians will announce complete control over the territory in coming days. And so that is why pro-Ukrainian sources right now are trying to color as many as possible territories during the days, because they don't want to show the city of Konstantinovka under complete Ukraine control when the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation will publish a video with thousands of flags through the entire city. So that is why they want to stay reliable, so that is why they began changing, and probably in 5-10 days we will see significant changes through maps of different sources. Now let's move further. As for the Zaporozhye direction, during the previous 12 hours we haven't received anything special. The Russians continue offensive operation, and we start receiving first updates on the Matsa that the Russians began bombing and attacking the territories around the settlement of Novoselivka, which lays to the west of the settlement of Gulyai-Polska. The Russians continue offensive operation towards the city of Orekhov. It will take time before the Russians are able to get there, but the Russians are moving. So this is the situation, and as you can see, the situation is very interesting. We see that neither the Russians nor the Ukrainians are ready for the negotiation process. One thing is clear to me: the Ukrainians are trying to force the Russians to accept the energy truth, and the Ukrainians are trying to use this and will try to use this energy truth during the winter period of time. So that is why we will see lots of attacks from the Ukrainian side. They will attack energy infrastructure, fuel trucks, and so on. And we'll see hundreds of these strikes just with one purpose: to force the Russians to accept the energy truce, but it seems that the Russians won't do this.